IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 19th. Trev, we're 9 days away from Thanksgiving, and we are 5 days away. So Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days away from Notre Dame taking on Army. This is going to be a big opportunity for Notre Dame. We're going to dive into all the reasons why during the show today. Right now, Army last week, when you look at the college football playoff rankings last week, Army was, I believe they were 24th last week, Trevor. Number 23 loss, number 22 loss, and number 19 loss, and number 18 loss, number 16 lost. My guess is that the Black Knights, who were off last week, are going to probably go up a little bit in the rankings. How much could have an impact on what Notre Dame's final resume looks like, Trev? We'll obviously get a look at that, but it's a huge opportunity for Notre Dame, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to kick things off here in a minute. We're going to actually talk about Notre Dame in Texas. Notre Dame's announced today that they're scheduled Texas. We're going to talk about 10-15 minutes just about that matchup, and then dive into what the schedules look like moving forward for Notre Dame in future years, and then we'll dive into sort of a what's at stake for Notre Dame. Right, this is kind of what we do on Tuesday, especially now that the playoff rankings are coming out. What's at stake for Notre Dame, and there's a lot of talk about Notre Dame's just kind of let's just assume that Notre Dame's in the playoffs, and we're gonna say hold on a second, let's talk about this for a second. And then we'll preview Army. We'll take a look at Army. We'll talk about what makes their offense and defense good, and what's unique about this matchup, and what makes them like Navy, what makes them different from Navy, what are the unique challenges that Notre Dame is going to have to face in this matchup. So that's everything that we've got going on today. So I'm excited about Trevor. Very excited about this show and very excited about this week. I know you are too. You're going to be making the trip to New York. It's going to be your first road game that you've covered for Notre Dame, so I know you're excited about that. And boy, lots going on. I've done the Yankee Stadium thing. It's a pretty cool experience, to be able to watch a football game inside there. And as someone who was in the old Yankee Stadium, it's a whole different stadium than the new Yankee Stadium. So you'll enjoy it, Trevor. But it's going to be a big one for Notre Dame, no doubt.
I'm excited, man. It's my first time out to New York City ever. My little sister lives out there, so we get to spend some time with her. My wife, Lauren's, coming with me. We're kind of treating this as a kind of a little mini honeymoon because we haven't had a lot of time to enjoy to ourselves post the wedding. So have Irish Breakdown to thank for that. But it's going to be an awesome weekend. And, before we know it, football season is going to come to an end, unfortunately. Those 12 guaranteed opportunities that Marcus Freeman was talking about, it's almost up, which is weird to think about. It feels like it was just a couple weeks ago that we were sitting down talking about how hostile of an environment Kyle Field is and how crazy it's going to be if Notre Dame can go in there and pull off the win as 3-point dogs.
Doesn't that seem like so long ago now? It really does.
It's wild. It seems like so long ago, but it wasn't, but it was. The season's had a lot of this, right? It's had a lot of this. Lately, it's been a lot of this. It's been on the upward trend.
Well, just college football in general, Trevor, it's just been a wild season so far.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, every Saturday there's a game that we aren't predicting that we end up having to turn on and say, yo, are you seeing this? So-and-so might lose. LSU might be losing for a third time in a row.
Yeah.
Or,
I was so tough to watch. But they're playing a lot of young guys. You can't win when you play a lot of young. Oh, wait, never mind.
Yeah, I was about to say it's tough when you're down to your third string Viper and a true freshman corner and a true freshman left tackle, and those are tough.
Hard to win that way. Yeah,
it
hard
is.
to win that way.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really tough. Yeah. But before we jump into it today, Brian,
I love how seriously you say sarcastic things.
Thank you.
It is very funny. It is well done, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. On the topic of other serious things, football season is coming to a close, unfortunately, which makes this no better time than to sign up with Notre Dame's new friends over at MyBookie. So before the regular season of college football ends, be sure that you go and you sign up with MyBookie using promo code IRISH. What that's going to do for you, you guys know what it is. It's going to double your deposit bonus. You throw in $10 into your account, MyBookie is going to credit you with $10 worth of bonus bets. So make sure you get all those squeezed in before the final regular season games for college football come to a close. And as always, Notre Dame, they play Army on Saturday. I think the line right now is set at 12.5. The last time I looked, I could be off, but I think it's somewhere around 12.5. So make sure to throw down some bets on Notre Dame. NFL's
up to 14.
Okay. Spreads up to 14. Make sure you keep that in mind for when you're throwing down bets with MyBookie. Be sure to enroll in their loyalty rewards program. It's going to earn you extra cash just for placing some bets. So before the regular season is over in college football, the NFL is still going on. No better time to sign up with MyBookie. It's a sports book that gives you control and rewards you for every moment of play.
So with that in mind, Trevor, let's dive into, speaking of some big games, there's some big games coming up for Notre Dame on the schedule this year, but there's also some pretty big games that are coming up here for Notre Dame in the future. We had an article out today at irishbreakdown.com, which is, by the way, for all of you, no matter where our website. So if you're new, you understand this. We have basically 3 different entities at Irish Breakdown. We have the podcast, which is the YouTube channel and the podcast. We have the website where all of our free content goes. That's at irishbreakdown.com. And then, of course, you have our premium message board at boards@irishbreakdown.com. Our website, our free website, has been affiliated with Sports Illustrated at one point in time. And then Athlon Sports is who it's currently affiliated with. And we'll see who we're affiliated with in the future. But here's the thing. No matter, when you bookmark it, don't bookmark whatever the URL is for whatever the current site we're located with. Bookmark www.irishbreakdown.com, because no matter where we go, irishbreakdown.com is our link that we have that will redirect you to wherever the site will be, and maybe someday it'll just be irishbreakdown.com. You never know, Trev. So we shall see, but just wanted to let some people know that. I got a message on the board. Hey, I wasn't sure how to find the website. Also, if you are a premium board member, if you just go to ib.com at the top left of the page and just click on that, it'll take you to the homepage for all the free content. But if you're a premium member, we put all of our written content on the premium board with the text included, so you don't have to click on the article and deal with the advertisements. But we all also appreciate that, because that helps us to continue to grow our business as well. So being a premium member, but we put that on the board today, Trevor. And I always bring that up because I've had multiple people the last couple weeks like, I can't find your website. Have you guys written an article in the last 2 months? And I'm like, yeah, they're still going to the old URL. And I'm like, yes, we are. And so that's what's going on there. But today we had an article about Notre Dame announced today that they have a game coming up against Texas, and it's going to be a home and home series in 2028 and 2029. And so Notre Dame, and we've seen this recently. Obviously, Notre Dame had a recent home and home, but they're in 2028. Notre Dame is going to have a home game against Texas, and a week later they're going to have a home game against Arkansas. So the first 4 weeks of the season, Trevor, are already scheduled so far. They now have 9 games scheduled for 2028. And then in 2029, Notre Dame is going to go to Texas on September 22nd. So they will start that season with Alabama. And then 1, 2, 3 weeks later, they will go down to Texas and play the Longhorns in Darrell K. Royal Stadium. Notre Dame also has 9 games slated for that season. We don't yet know if the Notre Dame USC rivalry will continue, because that is not extended at the present moment. So we'll see kind of how that one goes. But, Trev, it was an interesting one because you obviously love that Notre Dame's trying to schedule tough opponents. I believe they have a home and home coming up soon with Florida. They have a home and home that they just announced, or they have one with Florida also, Alabama. What was the one that they just announced a couple weeks ago? I'm drawing a complete blank. It's like 2023 or 2032 or something like that. Hold on a second. What was the one that they announced recently? We just talked about it. It was not Florida, because it wasn't an ACC team. It was
Was that Florida? Was that when they scheduled
the
home?
No, that one's been announced a while. That's been announced for a while. Was it
okay.
20? Trying to find it. Clemson's on there. The Florida one's been announced for a while. That was announced a year ago. I'm trying to find what game that was announced. That they're going to be playing here down the road. They do have Michigan coming back on the schedule in 2033. So that's going to be a new one that's going to be coming on there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, Trevor, to kind of see what the schedule looks like here down the road. They play SMU here in 2026. So maybe it was the Florida, but I remember the Florida one being announced a while ago, and I'm just drawing a complete blank on what the series is that's coming up here down the road. But I'll tell you this, Trevor. I've said this before. I think Notre Dame and Texas should play at least twice every 10 years, if not 3 to 4 times. I could see a scenario where it's like, okay, once every 10 years, you have 2 games against Texas, home and home, and then once during that period, you guys play on neutral field somewhere, something like that. I think that would be pretty cool to see. But Notre Dame, Texas, 2028, 2029. Just initial thoughts, Trev, and then I'm going to talk just briefly about sort of the history between these two football teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, it's a bad day to be a person who claims that Notre Dame doesn't play anybody. It's tough to be in that crowd today. I put out a tweet earlier today before the show started just about all of the notable opponents that Notre Dame has from 2025 down to 2030, and that list is continuing to grow. Obviously, a lot of the schedules are not finalized yet, but you look at 2028, they're playing Texas, Arkansas, Clemson. In 2029, they play Alabama, at Texas, at NC State, at Florida State. So Notre Dame is doing what you want a top-tier program to do. I'm with you, man. I love when Notre Dame goes and plays other historic college football programs, right? It makes for a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time Notre Dame and Texas played in a home and home in 2015, Notre Dame decimated them. I think it was 38-3. And then in 2016, unfortunately, Notre Dame lost that game, but that was one of the most exciting games that I have.
Very entertaining game.
I wish I could say it's one of my favorite Notre Dame games to watch. It can't because they lost, and I'm never going to say a loss is awesome to win or to watch, but that game's crazy. Yeah, I mean, a block extra point to tie the game, goes into overtime. Yeah, it was a crazy game.
I do think there can be a point where you're like, okay, you're playing too many of those type of teams in a season, and I do worry about that a little bit with some of these future schedules. 2029, you already have Alabama. You already play at Florida State. Now you play at Texas. You might have USC also on the schedule at that point in time. You look at 2000, and I think it was 2031 was a bit of a – I mean, again, you don't know how these teams are going to be, but 2031, you've got to play at Clemson. You play Florida. You play Miami. You might also have North Carolina. So, I mean, sometimes you can say, like, okay, we get a little too carried away, but I think the 2028 schedule will be fine. I'm good with that one. That'll be because I want a challenging schedule. And this year was supposed to be a challenging schedule. If USC and Florida State were their traditional good programs – that they are, we're talking a lot differently about this schedule than we have in the past, but we'll see how it goes. But it's so hard to get too worked up about schedules as far as like, I can't believe they're playing Texas and Clemson and Miami, and at Virginia Tech and Arkansas, and they might have to play USC that year. And, 2028 will be a year where you got to play them on the road. And it's like, well, you have no clue how good USC is going to be in 2028. You have no clue how good Texas is going to be in 2028. It was always hard to project that far ahead. It's even more challenging now with the portal and those type of things. And so, it's
the thing that I like about what Notre Dame's doing with their schedule is they are giving themselves a greater opportunity to playing a quality opponent than if they were going through and scheduling a bunch of, I guess you could say, lesser or higher profile football teams, right? IU is kind of an anomaly in that they are a perennial struggling program. They're having an amazing year this year, but you can't expect that out of a bunch of middle to lower tier teams. And so at least Notre Dame is giving themselves the opportunity to where, the way that I look at it, there's more of a chance of Alabama and Texas being good in 2029 than there is of Northwestern turning it around in 2029 and being a perennial powerhouse. So who knows? But I'm with you. I do think that there's a limit. And I think with some of these future schedules down the road, like you're kind of getting there of like, okay, you have 4 to 5 really good quality opponents. Don't really need to be adding a bunch more. But I think it's good for the sport. I think it's good for Notre Dame. And like I said, it bodes well for their strength of schedule down the road.
So, Trev, when you look at the history between Notre Dame and Texas, we'll just kind of wrap up with this real quick. I do like this rivalry. I don't know why. I haven't seen a lot of these games, but I just kind of feel like these are two very traditional powers with very unique looks, with a interesting history. You know, Notre Dame has a 9-3 all-time lead over Texas. The Irish won the first two matchups, which were actually in Austin. And then in 1913 and 1915. In the 1934, it was played in South Bend, and Texas won that game. The next game was in 1952 in Austin. Notre Dame won that game. It wasn't until 1954, which was the fifth matchup, that a home team won that game. And then if you're an old school person and you grew up in the era before me, so these games all got played before me, but I remember talking to Lou Emoji about some of these games, and that from 1969 to 1977, Notre Dame and Texas played three times in the Cotton Bowl, and Texas won the first matchup, which was at the end of the 69 season, and they won that one 21-17. And then a year later, they played in the Cotton Bowl. Notre Dame won 24-11. And then at the end of the 1977 season, Trevor, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the season, but Notre Dame was ranked fifth. We did talk about it, I believe, recently. Notre Dame was ranked fifth. Texas was ranked number one. And Notre Dame absolutely destroyed Texas 38-10. And that and some other results vaulted Notre Dame up to number one, and they won their national championship that season under Dan Devine. The Irish won the next three matchups. They beat Texas and South Bend 55-27 in 1995. And then in 1996, Notre Dame went down and beat Texas. I believe Jim Sanson hit a game-winning field goal in that particular game. And then we had the 15 and 16 rivalries, or the matchup. So I do like these, and this kind of puts them at about a little over 10 years since the last game. With the expanded playoff, there's a much greater chance that they can play in bowl games now, because it was a lot harder for Notre Dame and Texas to ever play again in a bowl game unless it was a playoff game, or because of the bowl tie-ins. There's a lot more the tie-in, so it's a lot harder for certain teams from certain leagues to ever play each other. Now with the 12-team playoff, that will eventually, before this series takes on, will probably expand to 14 or 16 teams. We'll see. We'll kind of see that potentially more matchups between them. But as far as getting them in your own stadium and things like that, I mean, maybe it happens this year if Texas loses to A&M. Maybe they fall down and got to come to South Bend. But now we know for a fact that they'll play the next 10 years. They'll play Alabama in the next 10 years. They'll play Florida in the next 10 years. They're going to play Michigan in the next 10 years. So Notre Dame continue to do what Notre Dame has always done, which is try to play those traditional powers, which, as we talked about, they tried to do this year. A&M lived up to their end of the bargain, but Florida State and USC did not. And there aren't a lot of teams that play that type of schedule. You get one of the best traditional programs on the East Coast in Florida State. You get one of the best traditional powers on the West Coast in USC, or the best traditional power in the West Coast in USC. And then you play, one of the traditional powerhouses in the Southwest in Texas A&M. So it was an attempt by Notre Dame to play a tough schedule. It's just other people didn't live up to their end of the bargain. But certainly we will hopefully see that when Notre Dame plays Texas.